Hi everyone. So far you have read about major players, mostly men, Caucasian, who have really contributed to the field of psychology. I wanted to give you an overview of those women and minorities who have enriched psychology, and I apologize, I don't have everyone, um, all the different ethnicities, minorities involved. So this is just a preview. Um, of some of the individuals. We know any discipline that has one ethnicity, one gender dominating it, it will suffer. As we diversify, we all have our own experiences in life, and we bring those experiences into solving different I don't want to say problems, but issues that we're looking at. And same thing for psychology, right? The more diversified, the more enriched it becomes. So we're going to start off with the first woman. She's not in psychology. Christine Latt Franklin was actually interested in applied math. But the reason she's important, she's one of the first women who sought higher education, completed her PhD in 1880 at Johns Hopkins University. She went out in the field and practiced, but Johns Hopkins would refuse to give her a degree. So she went out, formulated a evolutionary theory of color vision, which really was at that time revolutionary. So John Hopkins thought we should probably give her a degree, because if they give her the degree, then that theory would fall under their privy. So in 1926, they did give her a degree. If you look at when she died, she didn't have it for long, but it didn't matter. She was really doing it for the sake of education. The woman we want to highlight for psychology is Mary Whidden Calkins, who had attended one of William James, Dr. James' lectures at Harvard University, and was fascinated by it. So she approached Dr. James and said, "Can I attend your classes? I'm interested in getting my PhD." William James was very open-minded for, especially during that time, and he said, "Absolutely." He went and talked to administration, and Harvard said, "Absolutely not. We are a male institution. We do not allow women to attend. If she wants to come in as a guest student, which means she pays the tuition but does not get a transcript or a degree, she's more than welcome to." So she attended all of the classes, finished on top of her class, was really well regarded within people that she graduated with, and left Harvard after she finished all the requirements. Harvard didn't give her a degree. She went on, her father was in education, so he was able to secure her a job at Wellesley College. If you all haven't heard about it, it's back east, is considered an Ivy League school, but it is not but it is an all-girls school. So she was able to really promote psychology to other women that were interested in it, establish a laboratory, and did some really good research. She went on and became the first female president of APA, American Psychological Association, in 1905. One of the things that's really impressive about this woman, in 1905, APA, the members are all men, and they elect her to be their president, who never had a degree. So Harvard decides maybe it's a good idea for them to give her a degree because she's so well established within the field. But as Harvard would do, they went up to her and said, "Ms. Calkins, we want to offer you a doctorate degree. However, we can't give it to you from Harvard because we are a male institution, but we'll give it from our sister school, which at that time was Radcliffe." And she politely, I hope impolitely, but politely refused and said absolutely not. So she never got a degree. We can't say that she was the first woman to get a degree, but she was the first woman to complete the requirements for a PhD, but never got it. Margaret Floyd Washburn, however, was in fact the first woman to get her PhD in psychology from Cornell University in 1894. She went on and became an animal behaviorist, really has done some really good work, lectured, taught, and became the second woman to be the president of APA in 1921. Francis Cecil Sumner is considered the father of African American psychology for many reasons. One, he was the first African American to get his PhD from Clark University. Um, he was self-taught up to what we would consider like high school, and attended college, went to Clark University, and got his PhD, first African American. He also taught himself French, German, and Spanish, pretty impressive, and went on to become the chair of psychology department at Howard University, again expanding the field for other African Americans that would be interested in going to psychology and kind of diversifying it. If you're interested, this Dr. Sumner has a really controversial and interesting field or contribution to psychology and just in general. If you're interested, I would highly recommend reading more about him. Inez Beverly Prosser was considered the first female African American to get her PhD in psychology in 1933 from University of Cincinnati. She did her dissertation on self-esteem in segregated versus integrated schools. At that time, those schools were segregated. And what she found, which was really interesting and unfortunately used for the wrong reasons, she found that in kids that attended segregated schools tended to have higher self-esteem than the ones in integrated school. Further, she found that students, middle schoolers, that went to an integrated school tended to have be more socially maladjusted, felt inferior at school, and less satisfactory relationship with their teachers. So you can imagine at that time they read it and they said, that's why we need our school segregated. And I think what she wanted to portray was the level of prejudice and discrimination that was present for African American students at that time in the integrated schools. If you take a look at when she got her degree and when she passed away, the field definitely lost a great contributor. Unfortunately, she got into a car accident and passed away a year after getting her degree. But she was able to, even with their dissertation, really contribute to the discipline, and cross-referencing with education. Some more pioneer or contemporary pioneers in psychology are husband and wife team, Kenneth Clark and Mamie Phipps Clark, who did some really fantastic work on education. So when the case went to the Supreme Court in 1954, the court was hearing both sides, right? Should education still continue to be segregated, or should we go for integration? And there were those that actually took Prosser's and some other psychologists who promoted segregated school at that time. However, the court used some of the classic writings from the Clarks, on how segregation in general is detrimental to children's self-esteem. So at the end, they contributed to desegregation of education and other segregations, but education was a big part of it. George Sanchez is considered the father of Chicano psychology. He got his PhD from UC Berkeley in 1935. What's really impressive, he did a ton of work. I mean, the guy's work is boundless. More concentrating on education, but he really studied biases in intelligence testing. During 1930s and 40s, intelligence testings were being used by for many reasons, but one of them was to show that, look, minorities were just not scoring high on intelligence tests. Why are we wasting our resources and educational resources on minorities, especially immigrants? So and Hispanic immigrants. Let's just do occupational, maybe education, and save the money for Caucasian and more affluent. So what George Sanchez was able to show was that these tests were biased. They were biased towards the middle upper class. Um, and they were more, are obviously discriminatory towards the Hispanic students, especially immigrants. So again, was at that time revolutionary. Even today, we know these IQ tests are minorities and especially foreigners. Those who have recently immigrated do score lower because of their still developing fluency in English. Martha Bernal is considered the first female Chicana who got her PhD or master's and PhD in psychology. She got a master's from Syracuse University and PhD from Indiana University. She has a really interesting, again, another woman who has had a really interesting background from where she came from. She was from Mexican immigrants in El Paso, Texas. She came from a very traditional home. She was encouraged to stay home and get married and have kids, but she went against all that and pursued her education. Her big contribution, again, she has many contributions, but the big contribution was in multicultural psychology, which really picked up 1980s, 90s, and specifically looking at identification of Mexican American children, self-esteem, and other issues. So really interesting contributor. Marigold Linton is the first Native American psychologist. She got her degree from UCLA 1964 and has done some great work on autobiographical memory and how that can be used therapeutically for clients. Lastly, we have two contributors as Asian American early pioneers. Patrick Okuru got his master's from UCLA in 1935, although no PhD. He was practicing, so he's considered the first Asian American psychologist. And Richard Suen, who recently passed away, got his PhD from Stanford University. Dr. Suen and his wife, but more for him, were really well known within the discipline about their work on mental health and identity development in general, but specifically among Asian Americans, and how identifying with one's own ethnicity or ethnicity of origin, how that contributes to overall mental health, self-esteem, etc. He went on and became the first Asian American president in 1999 for APA, and has contributed to the field greatly. So these are some of the gurus within the discipline that have really diversified it. Obviously, this is not the only ones. You can always research LGBTQI or other trans, whatever, individuals that have contributed to the field, and they have. So that's it for minorities. As always, please let me know if you have any questions.